Yeah, so just want to say hello to everyone and welcome everyone to this webinar introducing the field or the topic of learning analytics. So this webinar is part of the Spring 2021 series of webinars on technology enhanced learning doctoral topics that we are developing within the Detail Erasmus Plus project. I'm Prieto. I'm a senior researcher at Tallinn University in Estonia, and I'm joined today by Peter de Lange, Alexander Neumann, and Ralf Klamma. I don't know if you guys want to say hi or say a few words for yourselves.
Yes, hello everybody. Nice to see you for our detailed webinar today. Hope we have interesting 2 hours about learning analytics, and most of you may know me as the greeting person for the actual conference. And perhaps other events like summer schools in TEL. That are the main activities from my side in the European Association of Technology Enhanced Learning. And today I'm here with my colleagues, Peter and Alex, and I now give the floor to them to introduce themselves.
Okay, I'll just continue. So hi, I'm Peter. I'm a student of Ralf for the last better part of 5 years now. And well, there's not much more to say. I've been to multiple ACTA conferences with Ralf, but yeah, I'm doing research mostly in the domain of infrastructuring, also learning analytics. And yeah, I'm here today to present you some systems we developed and talk a bit about architectures we have for learning analytics. Alex, you want to say something as well?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. May also know me from the last sessions. I was there also as a participant, so I'm also participating in this webinar sessions like you. And yeah, also doing my PhD under Ralf's supervision. And I'm more focused on bot-related stuff. So we will see some kind of bot later in this session. And yeah, I'm also excited about the next 2 hours.
Cool. So this is us right now. Of course, we are also joined by many other PhD students, and we will have a little bit of time to introduce yourselves to each other, at least in a smaller group. But let me first share a few screens about introducing the webinar itself. So as we mentioned already, so this is a webinar where we will try to introduce learning analytics as a field and as a topic of within TEL research. In that sense, it will be quite basic or introductory, so don't expect like huge, complex analytics questions here. It's more like getting acquainted or dipping your toe into this, pretty large sea of research that is learning analytics. So, of course, these slides and the materials, and probably also the recording of the webinar, will be available in this Moodle course we have for the webinar in the Detail platform. Yeah, I guess all of you know already how to use Zoom, now more than 1 year into the pandemic. But just in case, make yourself familiar with the interface where you can find the chat. Keep your microphone muted unless you want to speak up. But this is not really a lecture; it's more like an interactive session. So we hope you do speak up or interrupt us or ask questions if you have doubts. Also, because sometimes, especially the speaker, while he's presenting, doesn't really see the chat very much. So if you see that we are not making a lot of activity in the chat, you can also speak. Also, sometimes I find it useful to say that it's nice to see the faces of people rather than just the names of people in a blank screen. But of course, we are also recording this webinar, so we totally understand if you prefer not to appear. But especially for the breakout groups, I think it's nice if you can connect your camera and speak to people face to face somehow. And also, we will try to make the session engaging, but please try to be with us, like not multitasking or doing something else that is very demanding on your cognitive resources, because there's groupware exercises and this kind of multitasking will not work very well, and it's kind of disrespectful to your group mates. All right, so maybe let's just say a few words of why we thought it was important to have this webinar we have here today. So as we mentioned already, this is part of an Erasmus Plus project that is trying to develop a doctoral program in technology enhanced learning, so that universities all across Europe and all across the world can also reuse the resources and the structures that would make for good training for PhD students in this field of technology enhanced learning. And we are developing modules and learning resources about many different TEL topics. But especially interesting was, we have done within the project a survey in which 229 TEL PhD students and already doctors told us that actually, learning analytics materials and resources were the most demanding, and they were not so many available. So we thought, okay, maybe this is a good idea to do at least a webinar as a starting point to have some of these resources. But yeah, you will also ask yourself, okay, but why Learn Analytics is so popular? Why was it so demanded? So, I mean, just to introduce a bit the motivation for Learn Analytics as a field or as a practice. And, there's several global trends in the last probably decade or so in education. So there's this turn towards kind of evidence-based, evidence-based teaching, evidence-based institutional management, educational policy, etc. So, and then there's the question: how do we get such evidence in the hands of people? So, what kind of evidence is there that these teachers, these policymakers, or these institutional managers can use, to make learning more effective? On the other hand, there's this widespread use of digital platforms for learning, and I'm not only talking about Moodle or learning management systems like that, or Blackboard or whatever, but also things like MOOCs and platforms like that, or many other ways of learning using digital tools. This was especially prominent in higher education, which has the most penetration for this kind of technologies, but also these more semi-formal courses like massive open online courses, which are taken by thousands or sometimes even millions of people. So this, along with the the availability and the advances on big data, machine learning, etc., to process the sometimes massive data from these digital platforms at scale, gave a bit this concern or this question in the minds of several researchers, saying, okay, but maybe since we have so many people learning digitally and we have these new techniques, can these big data techniques help us or help the educational actors to get evidence about and better understand learning? And that's a bit like the starting point for learning analytics. And you can see, like this is from Google Trends. So it looks like the popularity of Learn Analytics at least as a query in Google has also risen, especially from, let's say, 2010, 2011 up to, plateaued more or less in 2017 or so. So, it's been a relatively young field, but it's become quite popular quite fast. So that said, what do we expect from this webinar as a learning experience? So we hope by the end of it, you will be at least able to define Learn Analytics in your own words, that you understand a bit what kinds of different Learn Analytics solutions are possible. So in a sense, what is the design space of Learn Analytics? That you understand a bit the potential benefits and risks, or benefits and challenges that learning analytics technologies can bring, both for educational research and in practice. We hope to make you acquainted with a few learning analytics tools concretely, as well as some of the technologies that are used underneath to make them function, and also some learning resources where you can deepen your knowledge of this research field and its practice. Okay, so far so good. So any questions about this so far? Is everyone in the right webinar? You all want to be here. You want to hear about Learn Analytics. No questions? Because otherwise, I mean, this is the session structure for today. As you see, there's quite a few things we're going to do. We're going to start with, what do we mean by this Learn Analytics? We'll talk about benefits and challenges. We'll do a little test of our knowledge of Learn Analytics as well. And then we will look behind the scenes, because this webinar itself is generating data. And we are going to look at what kind of data we as instructors have about experience, and what kind of things Learning Analytics enables for us. We are also going to look a bit deeper into infrastructure, tools, and toolkits. Some of them used to implement this webinar, but also some other things we are working on, both at Aachen and in Tallinn University. And then we will talk a little bit about learning analytics as a field. So we'll talk about paradigms and problems, things that could be researched if you want to research on learning analytics. And then if we have time, we will do a little bit of reflection on the webinar as a learning analytics experience. So using an exercise that we also did last week for those of you that were there, like this 6 hats kind of exercise. And then we'll wrap up and tell you, where you can go next to learn more about learning analytics. Okay, so let's get started with this. What do we mean by learning analytics? So we thought it would be interesting to look at this not just by now giving you the definition, which is kind of boring, and sometimes definitions do not tell us that much or are not so easily integrable into our brains. So rather, we are going to do it by induction. So in the preparatory activities, we ask you to look at a list of learning analytics examples. This is a website that has been there for some years, that has some nice catalog of different learning analytics tools, so that people can understand a bit what it is, what kind of systems these learning analytics systems are. And then we will go from these concrete examples to abstract concepts by seeing what is common across these examples and what is different. So how are we going to do it? So we wanted to propose you an exercise, and this will also give us a bit the opportunity to get in small groups and introduce each other. So the idea is that we'll make, I know this stop sharing the screen for a second, just make it easier if we see each other. So I'm going to do breakout rooms in Zoom, I guess, like these smaller groups or smaller rooms, but we will not use them. So we are going to use another tool for this small group discussion. The thing is, I need Zoom to create the groups just to know who goes into which group. So I'll use the functionality of creating groups from Zoom, but we will use some other tool. So we are about 20-something people here. So I think I'll do 6 breakout rooms. And you will be randomly assigned. So, it's not like you will be with your friends, or you will probably be with, total random people that you don't know. And one thing, so you will receive an invitation in case you don't know how this works. So you will receive like a pop-up that says, okay, you are being invited to room 1 or 3 or whatever. So note the number of that room, but do not accept the invitation. Okay, so just reject it or say decline, or I don't remember how it says it. But be sure to note what room number, because that's the room number we are going to use in the following tool that I will show you in a minute. Okay, so I'm opening all the rooms. So hopefully you will have received and I see some people already have entered, which we said it's not what you need to do, but I will close them anyways now. So I hope you have noted the room number. I will now close the room so that people come back anyways. And the idea is now we will use another tool for the grouping. And the tool I'll put in the chat. Yeah, those of you that are here with 2 accounts, just choose one and go to that one. It doesn't really matter since it's randomly selected. So I hope you see there the website. So you have to go there. It will ask you, so you can, there's a button that says try it out. And there you will probably have to either create a user, but if you have this Google account, then it's probably easier if you just log in with your Google account, so you don't have to create yet another account in some random system. So maybe try to, you can confirm whether you are able to enter the tool. And then you will be asked for a code or a session pin. And the session pins depend on what group you got into. I hope you're following, although this is a bit complicated. It's a bit experimental. So depending which group you got assigned to, you have this session pin. So group 1 was this 0E60E8 and so on. So please copy from the chat the code that corresponds to your group number. So I will just share my screen just to show you what you should be seeing. So you should have seen a screen like this one, I guess. And if you click on try it now, it will ask you for a user or to create a user. I have already logged in, so for me, it shows something else. But is anyone having any trouble logging into this other tool?
Hi, Luis. Yes.
Yeah.
It does not. I'm having a problem. It does not recognize my Google account, so it will take a minute. Okay.
Okay, so that's a pity. So then maybe you need to register, but that will take more time. Is anybody else having trouble with this signing in with the Google accounts? Yeah, those of you that missed the explanation because you were in a breakout room, you can head to the link I'm putting in the chat. So create a user there or log in with your Google account and go to use the session pin code that appears. So your group number is the group number that appeared in the invitation you got from Zoom. That's probably a bit confusing. I can also tell you, once people get in, like I can also tell you one by one if you're missing it. So for example, as you are in room 1 or group 1.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So are you able to enter the rooms? So now you will have this strange situation in which you are in Zoom and also in this other room. So you have like, all sorts of videos going around. So you could also for a second, so let's say it's now 1:20 Central Time. So we will try to go back. So there's instructions in the tool once you enter the room about what you need to do. So just introduce yourselves to your group and try to do the activities. You have about 15 minutes. So if you want to log out from Zoom now and come back in 15 minutes, that's also okay. That's less confusing for you. I will also try to, go into the rooms and see if things are working properly. So be aware that this is a research prototype, so things might break, but let's hope that everything works. Okay, so I'll assume people are going into the rooms, and I'll go get into these other rooms in CodeTrack. So see you in a minute. Okay.
Hello
So,
again.
yeah, hello again. It's a pity that this other tool doesn't have like this kind of kick everybody out functionality yet. So people are a bit on their own to be back.
Indeed. But I think it's quite a nice tool, the CodeTrack one.
Well, we will see later on a few more things about it and whether it's still very prototypey. So, and I'm not sure we have had so many people on it at the same time yet. So it was also a bit of a test.
Stress test.
Yeah. All right. So I really hope people are slowly back. I see Joseph, who was asking for 5 minutes, is already back. So I think we can kind of go on. I see some others are also connecting now. Yeah, I think for next time, I should kick everybody out of the Zoom, because that will make things less confusing next time, so that people just have one environment to look at. All right, so I'll just quickly share my screen. So now let's do something with the output. At least I hope, or we hope you have some you know, at least you know now a few others in the webinar, and you've been talking a little bit, and you know, sipping your brains into this. Okay, what is learning analytics? What is not? So now we'll do kind of a small follow-up to this activity, which is, we are going to ask you, if you remember in the activity instructions, there was something about creating a multiple choice question about this paper by Greller and Draxler that was there in the preparatory activities. So what we are going to ask you to do is, at least one person from each group, I hope you chose a spokesperson, please send your response by private chat in Zoom to Alexander Neumann. I hope you know how to do that. If not, let us know. So you can say, you know, we are group 2, and our question was this and this, and our, you know, the solutions, or the, you know, the options in the multiple choice were this and this and this. I hope you are able to do that. If not, let us know. And what we will do is we will add these questions to a quiz that we will do later on to test how we are doing with, you know, getting more knowledge about learning analytics. But we will answer it in a kind of a strange or special way, which is using a social bot, not just like the classic Moodle quiz. Okay. So I hope the groups are able to do that. Can you maybe signal for each group whether you were able to do it?
I'm writing for group 5, and we don't have as many multiple choice answer options, just so.
I mean, if it's just 2, it's okay. Like, you know, it's easier for everyone, but you know, it's not a big deal. Okay, I see group 3 is done. What about the others? I really hope you don't have like a very long question. All right. So maybe while the spokespeople are, you know, sending the questions in the chat to Alexander, I will also go on with the next few slides, which are not about this question, but rather about the definition. So we also took, if you remember, there was this activity in the preparatory activities. Oh, group 5, better send it by private chat, not to everyone, otherwise everyone might know the correct solution to that question. Yeah, no worries. But at least you didn't say which one was the correct solution, right? So at least say that to Alexander by private chat. All right, so let's go over the whole definitions thing. And you know, like the word in the definition is not as important as well, that we get this idea in our mind, and you are able to recognize, you know, these kind of systems and be able to you know, work with them, or you know, work with them in your mind. So from your individual definitions in the submissions from Moodle, we we did, for example, this, you know, small workflow here, Of course, we removed learning analytics, which was the most common words, but you know, we can see, okay, like people are thinking it's something related to data, about students and learners, but also teachers, you know, and there's several things about, you know, collection, reporting, about environments. But, you know, like this still doesn't give us a definition. There's many ways to combine this. We could also do another, let's say, analysis of these definitions that you did and do it by bigrams, for example. So like, you know, pairs of two words. And this gives us, you know, a few more ideas, like there's a lot of measurement and collection analysis, but, you know, it enables teachers or allows teachers. It looks like, you know, it looks like teachers could be users of these things. And there's several other things there, like, you know, educational data, ethical use, data gathered, engagement metrics, for example. That's interesting. And we could even do yet another analysis of these definitions you provided, and, for example, look at it from the point of view of sentiment. So like, were there words in your definitions that were positive or negative? And we can see, for example, that there were some quite, you know, negative words, like something negative, pain, concerns, and also many more positive ones, like, you know, progress, improve, personalize, integrate, etc. And, you know, like this still doesn't give us a definition, but it at least give us an idea that, or we try to convey you the idea that, you know, the data was the same in these three cases. We just did different analysis, and, you know, we got like kind of different points of view or different outcomes out of it. And we also, you know, and these analysis and these outcomes kind of depend on what kind of question we pose to the data in the first place. In this first case, it was single words, so it's the single most common words. This is about pairs of words. This is about the sentiment of words. So you can see this posing different questions, even to the same data, provides us with kind of different insights about what the data contains. Okay. But yeah, let's go to what you've been doing in the groups. So again, and now you can do it in the open. So we would like at least one person from each group to give what are the definitions that you came up with in your groups. So if you can put them in the chat. Okay, I see group one are still working on that. So at least maybe for group one and all the other groups, can you please provide your definitions in the chat to everyone? Yes, correct. So we can also get an idea of what kind of things are out there in your minds when we talk about learning analytics. Because one thing that is kind of interesting about this field, and both learning analytics and technology enhanced learning, is that we probably have here in the room people from very different backgrounds. So we might have some people that are more technical, you know, more related to computer science or engineering, but maybe some others are, you know, like purely educational, or, you know, from psychology or from design. So there's many fields that touch upon or are interested in learning analytics. So, and that gives us also like a quite heterogeneous audience today. So let's see what groups are saying. So generating, analyzing, and interpreting objective data from learning experiences. That's interesting. Process of gathering, analyzing, and interpreting educational data in a learning system to quantify performance and engagement metrics and provide predictions. Wow, that's very long. These analysis can be used to enhance learning experience for students to provide personalized feedback. Additionally, teachers can gain insight into the performance of their learners. So yeah, so I think group 4 was kind of trying to get all of learning analytics research into single 2 sentences. So that's very nice, and you can already get like some commonalities there, like you know, analyzing and interpreting data, and then things about what the data is used for example, like this, providing personalized experiences or personalized feedback, analyzing the performance, etc. For example, group 2, collection and use of data from learners to their guide and their learning experience, achieving better results if no data was used. Okay, that's interesting as well. These data can be collected and used in various moments. The data could be used by teachers. So that's another element that is probably interesting. It's like who uses the data. So one thing is who you gather data from. Another thing is who you show the data to, and including also computer programs as a source of data. And it's also a research tool. That's also an interesting aspect. So it's not just something that can be used in educational practice, but it's also something that can help us as researchers to understand the world better, in this case, learning processes. Okay. So, okay, I think maybe the other groups didn't get to. Oh, okay, there's one more.
I don't know what's happening in my chat. I
Okay.
just wrote down and copied the right thing. This is not the right thing. I am resending it.
Okay.
It might be something with my computer as well. I'm so sorry from everyone.
No worries. Okay, for estimating methodology for analyzing and presenting different aspects of learning, including the interaction with and among the learners, long-term choices that learners make. Such data could be extracted from teaching approaches, providing teachers with insights to redesign their instructional instruments. Okay, so yeah, so several of the same elements, analyzing and presenting aspects of learning. Oh, and then I brought up also collection of data by learners' interactions online and offline environments in order to tackle decisions of learners and to develop a new way of teaching and learning. Okay, that's also quite broad, but also quite on point. Yeah, so as you can see, like there's quite a few aspects to learning analytics. It's quite clear that it's gathering data, analyzing it, and then interpreting or showing it to some other actors, and with the hopes that this will make learning better, learning processes, or maybe for the teaching as well, and also maybe for researchers to understand the learning. And I think you kind of covered most of the elements of the official definition, which I will show right now, and which some of you already provided in the initial assignment. So I at least some of you know this definition already, and you could be pasted it basically. So this is given by the Society for Learning Analytics Research, or SOLAR, which is like the main scholarly society in this field. And it says that learning analytics is the measurement, collection, and analysis and reporting of data about learners and their contexts. And this is something that maybe I don't think any of the definitions capture. Like, it's not only about the learners and what they do, but also sometimes their context, including, well, the teaching, for example, it can be part of the context of the learning. So in that sense, you did capture some of that as well in your definitions. For the purposes of understanding and optimizing learning and the environments in which occurs. Again, like there's this, making learning better, this optimizing element that you already pointed out. And there's also this more understanding, which can be for the teachers, but also for the researchers. But then you could also ask yourselves, okay, how is this really different from doing good old educational research? Educational research has been doing this for decades now, like, analyzing data and reporting it about learners, their context, they want to understand, they want to optimize. I don't know, what's different then in learning analytics? And, according to Rebecca Ferguson, who is one of the earlier scholars working about this field, the fact that learning analytics makes use of, or mostly or most often makes use of pre-existing and machine-readable data. So it's not just, as you did in education before, like, doing interviews or questionnaires. It's just like the data that is generated by people learning with digital tools, that very often can be more easily readable by machines. So that, that's kind of like a small distinction. and also that learning analytics techniques can handle this big data, again, like that are not practicable to analyze manually. And again, that's also like why this field came up once, like with the latest advances in machine learning and big data techniques. Okay, so are there any questions about this more like definitional side of learning analytics? Oh, I see Mahesha came up with another definition. Measurement, collecting patterns, analysis, reporting of data, which is collected through trackable data provided through learning tools using the technology enhanced learning environments of learners and their contexts for purposes. Okay, so yeah, so this is partly taken from the official definition as well, which probably some people in the group already knew and kind of completed it with a few more elements. But yeah, so I guess at least from seeing these few examples you did in the interesting point by Karsten there. Yeah, I mean, word clouds is not like a very strong analysis, method, let's say. I just wanted to illustrate a bit of, automated analysis of data, which was kind of difficult to get into one single screen. Like the fact that there were like more than a dozen definitions. So that was just a way to analyze, which of course is misleading, like many other analyses. And we will also go over this later on. Like many analyses, if you take them decontextualized, they kind of lose much of its power and can be misleading. So a good point there. All right, so any other questions about these definitions, or what is learning analytics, what is not learning analytics? Do you have any other doubts about that? Okay, because otherwise I will just show you a few slides on the benefits and challenges of learning analytics from a very high level perspective. So I will not, because we don't have also time to go very deep into these 2 hours. So I mean, what kinds of learning analytics are out there? So among the readings we were asking you to do to prepare for this webinar, there was this paper by Greller and Draxler, which is a conceptual framework to understand a bit the design space of learning analytics. So this kind of framework, if you look at it, we think it's very, when we teach learning analytics, this is kind of like one of the first things we teach, because it's useful to describe learning analytics systems or learning analytics solutions in terms that other learning analytics researchers can understand. So you talk about stakeholders, okay, the people will, if you want to talk about the people that use the system and you say they are stakeholders, then people will, this kind of vocabulary will be quite understandable for other experts. And it will also, like any design space, so it's a way to categorize or to like look at this space of solutions to be designed. So it by trying new combinations of these elements in this design space, you can come up with maybe new ideas for a learning analytics solution. So what this framework says, and I will go very fast because I suppose you have all read about this. So the framework says basically that we can describe any learning analytics innovation in 6 critical dimensions. It has stakeholders, so this is the people involved in the use of the system. And there's 2 big categories, like the data subjects, who you get the data from, and the data clients, which is who you get the data to, or who you show the data to. Also, there's the objective of the system or of the analysis or the solution. So this can be, you can show the data so that people reflect, or you want to predict the performance of somebody. And in your definitions, there were already some of these objectives mentioned there. There's the data itself, which is, okay, what is the data set look like? What kind of indicators does it have? What kind of granularity does it have? How often is the data gathered? Things like that. There's the instruments, meaning, and this is like a very broad concept that includes both, what kind of techniques you use to analyze the data, what is the underlying pedagogy that, makes this analysis make sense. Oops. Sorry about that. Had some kind of strange call. So as I was saying, so the instruments are what kind of analysis techniques you use, the underlying pedagogy that makes the analysis make sense, or how you present the data, like the results of this analysis, for example. What kind of visualizations you use, what kind of, how you design this interaction. And then the framework also talks about limitations that should be taken into account when using the system, like external limitations, meaning external to the system itself and the user. So, things like conventions about the use of these systems, or norms, things like, what are the ethics and privacy norms that have to be taken into account, for example, depending on which country you are working, or which community and local culture, things like that. And there's also internal limitations, which are about limitations of the users themselves or of the system. Like, for example, whether if the system is very complicated, whether it requires that stakeholders are very competent or they know a lot about data analysis and things like that. Okay. I don't know if there's any questions about this framework by Klamma and Draxler. It's kind of clear what these different elements are. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. So I will also, very briefly talk about, for example, how the sausage is made, as sometimes we say. So how learning analytics is actually implemented, or what kind of processes it has. So, and there's different papers or different people describing these kind of processes that the learning analytics practice goes on over. Like, this is a classic one by George Siemens. So, you also capture some of this in your definition. So, like, there's the collection and acquisition of the data. You have to store it somewhere, hopefully in a secure way. You have to clean it, which is something that many people kind of underestimate, how much time it takes until you have clean data that you can analyze and make use of. If you have multiple sources of data, you have to integrate, then you have to analyze it, represent it, or visualize it, and then you hopefully take some kind of action from the insights you get by visualizing the results of the analysis. And if you want to be more specific about some of these things, so like the data, you have to define what are your goals, what are the modalities you want to track, what kind of tools you're going to get data from, collect and label the data, prepare, organize, fuse, analyze. It's a bit the same thing. It's just a slightly different and more detailed view that is from a different paper. Okay. But okay, we have these learning analytics. What are the benefits? So we know there's this kind of systems. You have seen some examples. In very basic terms, and we already mentioned this from the definitions as well. So learning analytics can be a very powerful tool for gathering evidence about the learning and the teaching processes. So if you think before, like maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, in the educational sciences and education in general, getting data was kind of costly, and you had to either make exams, or you had to have learners do long questionnaires or interviews, focus groups, things like that. And this made the process, it made the data gathering quite infrequent, which also kind of made it so that there's a certain emphasis on the outcomes versus the process, because you cannot really gather data so often. So very often, you just gather data at the end of the process and you say, okay, like this is what happened. And this also kind of led to, a lot of in the everyday educational practice, when you don't have this data or this evidence, because maybe you only do the exam or whatever data gathering at the end of the semester. So there's a lot of gut feeling going on in this everyday educational practice and policy as well. But then people realize that if people use digital tools for learning, machines can automatically gather detailed ongoing data for you. And like this is things like actions in the platform, clicks, taps, whatever, are also not only what people do, but also like the intermediate artifacts. So I think if you think of Google Docs, for example, as a classic thing, that you can see maybe the whole history of the document, and that can also give you an idea of the process that was done to reach the outcome. So for example, if it's a group activity, for example, like we did some minutes ago, okay, like by seeing like how the document evolved over time, we can see who contributed more or less, who took up ideas from whom, and so on. And it's not just that we get more data, that also machines can analyze the data for you. And there's all these big data techniques, machine learning, data mining, etc. So this also leads to faster insights. So we don't have to wait for 6 months until we analyze the interviews, until we learn something about this setting. And even when people are not using technology, and this is also something that that was mentioned in some of the definitions you gave. So like you can gather data from online environments, but also from offline. So there's, we can have sensors, and sensors can be something as simple as the microphone and the camera in your computer, so that, or also like I don't know, like the sensors that you have in your phone that say that, oh, now I'm moving or not moving, or there's many digital sensors that are now available that can help us make sense of learning happening in the real world, even if people are not necessarily using a digital tool for learning per se. And this also gave a raise to a subfield in learning analytics, which is called multimodal learning analytics. And this code track system that you experience at the beginning of the session is an example of one such kind of system that kind of tries to gather data from multiple modalities to try to make sense of this kind of complex interplay between what people say, how people look, and what what they write down, for example. So that's how it can benefit a bit practice. So it can help us get more data more often and understand how the learning process goes. But also is, as I think some of the definitions said, also a tool for research. So if you're a researcher trying to understand complex learning, so learning analytics is a great tool in your methods kit. Of course, it doesn't need to be necessarily the sole tool. Maybe going back to Karsten's comment that sometimes this analysis we do can be misleading if you take them in isolation, and that's also why it is good to have triangulation. But we think learning analytics can be a really great tool in the toolkit to analyze at least some aspects of learning, especially, for example, those related to processes. Exactly, like processes, or you want to see the temporal evolution of phenomena, for example, not only the outcomes. So in that case, learning analytics can be a good thing. Also, if you want to analyze learning at scale, let's say you have a course with 1,000 students, maybe you cannot do interviews with everyone. So maybe learning analytics can tell you something about that course that cannot be said manually, let's say, or with traditional means. Okay, so those were the benefits. So what are the challenges, rather, or the risks? And there's several, and that's learning analytics is a young field, so there's still a lot of challenges left to work on, and that's also maybe good if you are a PhD student thinking of working on learning analytics, because there's a lot of space for you to put your footprint on somehow. So learning analytics is still technically complex. So as you could see, like we are still dealing with this kind of research prototype kind of technologies, and only very basic analytics are available in more like mainstream platforms like Moodle or Blackboard. And the moment you want to, mix multiple sources, let's say if people are using different environments, or, you want to introduce some of these sensors, things like that, you're a bit on your own, and you have to do your own research prototype to try to see if it works. So also, if you get into this, make sure you have some technical support around you, or that you collaborate with experts in the more technical side of things, or if you are yourself a more technical person. And for example, this is just one example of a learning analytics challenge that's still ongoing, which is the problem of interoperability, which means like think of this webinar. We have this Moodle, we have this code track. We will do later like more like a whiteboard exercise using Google Draw. So okay, can these systems really talk to each other? So can the instructor get a unified view of the data that is being generated across all these systems? And the answer today is mostly no, although maybe the people from Aachen will also tell you a bit more about this kind of trying to solve these kind of problems. Yeah, so there's some initial solutions, standards like XAPI, infrastructure for LA, and this is what we will talk about a bit more a bit later. So those are more like technical challenges. There's also educational challenges, which is again about, okay, what does the learning analytics data or this analysis mean really from the educational point of view? So we know the learning processes are known to be highly contextual, and individual differences matter a lot. So sometimes these very broad analysis of data that are based on like what somebody wrote in a certain moment in a certain forum. So you have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes. So even when we have a purely online experience, learning still happens in the physical world. So there's the possibility that some extraneous aspect is causing this data rather than something that we can see really in the data itself. So in general, as I think Karsten also was pointing to with his comments, so beware of oversimplistic interpretation and extrapolations from a single source of digital data with no knowledge of the context. So yeah, so always try to triangulate as we were saying before. Also in learning analytics research, there is a strong emphasis on theory or pedagogical grounding of the analysis. So and this is also varies a bit in the different sub-communities or related communities, like for example, learning analytics versus educational data mining and other words that we will also look at later on. So in general, in learning analytics, the results of the learning analytics should still make sense when seen from the point of view of some learning or pedagogical theory. It shouldn't be just like, oh no, look, we just found that people that on Wednesdays people are smarter. What kind of educational theory actually explains that? So the results should make sense from the point of view of some theory or pedagogy. And this also gives the result that there's quite a few brands of learning analytics that try to focus on a particular pedagogy. So there's particular learning analytics for collaboration, for example, for collaborative learning. There's other people working on how to do analytics for inquiry learning or for knowledge building. So every pedagogy can have its own brand and its own flavor of learning analytics that looks at specific constructs, specific indicators that are important for this kind of learning. And maybe one of the big problems or one of the big challenges more in the educational side is that when we find these analysis, these models that the analytics tools come up with, sometimes it's kind of unclear how generalizable are to other contexts. So, if we got this, I don't know, this result from this code track platform in this webinar, how much can we really generalize from this data if we find something interesting there? And there's also other kinds of challenges which are more like ethical. Like yes, in other fields where analytics and big data are applied, analytics can have ethical implications that are pretty important, like whether it respects or not users' privacy, their agency, whether we are avoiding risks or biases. So in this sense, in the learning analytics field, researchers have also been trying to polish themselves a bit and how they use or practice or implement learning analytics. And this is one example, like this delicate framework, also by Draxler and Greller. So they just, it's something, if you're a researcher, it's kind of like a checklist that helps you, understand if you are being ethical when you are applying your learning analytics. Things like, asking for consent and involving the stakeholders anonymize the data, etc., etc. Okay. Okay, so now it will be the time to test our knowledge of learning analytics. So we have been giving you quite a bit of, theory. We have seen some examples. So now, before we go into that, maybe does anybody have questions on what we have seen so far, like this conceptual framework? What kind of elements of the design space, benefits, challenges, anything at all? Please don't be shy. I mean, because otherwise we can just go on to the test. So I don't know if either Peter or Alexander want to take it from here.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
Just a quick introduction what we want to do. I'll try to share my screen. Let me see. So you should see now my screen, right? So what we're about to do is, well, we're basically going to test you by the questions you have collaboratively edited or created in the group book. This is, well, the editing view of the Moodle room that you all joined, hopefully during the webinar. And we have here what we called an LA quiz, like a learning analytics quiz, which is, due to technical reasons, not visible for you. But Alex, when you've sent him the questions, has edited it here. So you might recognize these questions. What we will do now is we will now go to a Rocket Chat instance, which is basically, if you don't know it, it's like a Slack but open source. You should have the link to that in the slides. I'm not sure, maybe Luis, you could post it quickly in the chat in Zoom while I'm explaining it. And we have here what is called the Learning Analytics bot. This Learning Analytics bot is, well, it's a bot that we created with the infrastructure that Ralf actually will present you directly after this demonstration. And it is able to, well, take the questions from the Moodle room and ask them, post them to you, and you have to answer them via communication with the bot. So I can, for example, just tell them hi, and then after a certain amount of time, it will tell you, hi, welcome to the data webinar. Would you like to take a Moodle quiz? And of course, I'd say, yeah, sure. And after a quick round of thinking, it will present you with the quiz it has just taken from the Moodle room. And I will not go through this completely because that will be your task. So what you should do now is you should log into this Rocket Chat instance. You can use the same learning layers login that you also use to log in the Moodle room. And you should be directly be forwarded to this particular screen that we're seeing here. And then you conduct this short 5 questions, and afterwards we will continue and show you some results that we have monitored during this this chatbot dialogue, and also during other activities you've done in the chat, you've done in the Moodle room, as it was announced in the Moodle room on top. I think we somewhere here we said that you're being tracked, and we will later on show you what kind of analytics data we've gathered from that. I'm quickly checking the chat now. Well, it's not really different from taking the Moodle quiz. It's, well, okay, but if Ralf says he will explain it in the following, then of course I will let him do that. What I can say is it has a lot more potential than just posing a single quiz question. And yeah, as Ralf said, we will talk about this in a bit. But for now, for the activity you're doing now, it's basically the same as answering these questions in the Moodle room, except that you're actually using a different, more natural interface, let's say. Okay, I hope this is working so far for you. I'll stop sharing my screen, I guess. And I'll give you maybe 5 minutes or something. And if you have any problems, just mention it here. So let's just, I think we'll do another approach. So I'll share my screen again just to show you how it should look like. Let's see, should be that one, right? So I just started again. And well, it says like select a quiz here. You can see my screen, right? Just to make sure. And I will just use the LA quiz here. And what you should see now should be something like this. So this question, I mean, obviously is by Luis. So question, I could, for example, answer by, well, let's say A. And then I will, well, first of all, it will just tell me that this was currently the wrong answer, but for the sake of completing the whole quiz, I will just show you what you could do and not provide the right answers here. So this would be how you would add multiple answers. Excuse me, maybe not. Oh, it's only one, I'm sorry, in this case. So just use D here. But I mean, you get the picture, right? I hope how this should work.
Yeah, I think we have a serious case of demo effect, as we were saying in the slides. The field is still, you know, working with a lot of research prototypes. So many of these things are things that we are, different groups are working with, and maybe have never had like 30 people at the same time hammering.
Well, to be honest, I mean, it might be problematic because of the concurrent working with it, because the social bot framework is actually, I mean, Ralf will talk about this in a minute. But the social bot framework, which we are using to create various bots which are working in, let's say, the same domain, to actually be used in courses with 300 students through the course of a semester, where they had to do exercises each week, you know, and it works quite reliable. But of course, we didn't have like a specific time span where everyone was like doing it concurrently. So just for the sake of showing you what you should see, I will just go through those questions. I think there were like 5 questions, and I think I should be done already. And then if that's okay with you, Luis, I will just continue with showing like the results that these quizzes have produced. So as you see here, you get like a final assessment in the end, which tells you how much you got right. So currently I wasn't like the best in answering those questions. It also tells you which questions were wrong. Yeah, and what I just wanted to show you now is so what we did do in the background, and again you will see the infrastructure regarding this as well in a few minutes. We instrumented the Moodle course and also the Spot framework to actually record what you did during, well, the last days actually. So we recorded, if you read something in the Moodle room, we recorded questions you answered and so on. And this is then extracted both from Moodle and Social Bot and stored in a learning record store. So that's like, in this case, we are using Learning Locker. You see that here already. And let me see, I will just refresh it so that we get like latest data. So you see here that some people were able to complete quizzes, some even like 3 times. So these are like the raw data. This is not like really, let's say, saying much. Just a quick reference here. So you see here your clear names or your clear emails. We will delete these after the course. So this is not how you usually store stuff in a learning record store because of privacy issues. It's just for the sake of the demo. And you can actually see how we do this in production. So this, for example, is a message that was sent by the social bot framework in one of our projects, like in a simultaneous manner. And here you have like hashed files, hashed usernames. Yeah, so this is like the raw data. We can also take a look at it. So it's rather technical here, right? But what you can do with this data is you can visualize them and you can create so-called dashboards, which I will just show you now. So this is like a demo dashboard we have here for this course. This is taken from the Moodle room itself. So this is like, let's say, the whole activity with regards to what you've viewed. You see here the submitted assignment. So you can see that 6 people submitted actually this assignment we had in the Moodle room as a preparation. You can also have it ordered by most popular activities in the room, but you also have here, for example, like how many points you scored in a single quiz and these things. So what's important to mention here is that these things not only come from Moodle, they are also coming from Moodle, but basically what you can do is you can have like a multimodal sensor, a multimodal analysis of learning analytics data. So this is from Moodle, this is from chatbot. Well, to give you an impression from another project, for example, we have here like a mood ring, which is basically sensor data, which you can also basically store in the same dashboard. This is from another project where we have like stuff recorded from another LMS. So it's not like Moodle, but it's a German own production LMS instance. But this is all like aggregated in one learning record store. So it's actually possible to to match this data sets and to really perform learning analytics across multimodal data sources. Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to show. I'm just checking the chat. Okay, here are some more issue messages, but okay, some people just okay. How I measure the most popular activity? Previous slides. Could you elaborate on that? What you mean with that? Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Yes, now you are sharing the same. Is the third graph that you have there, and the question is, what are the most? Yes, that one. What are the most popular activities? So I wanted to ask you, what, how do you measure this? I mean, which aspects are you considering in order to say that one activity is more popular than the other one? Well, I mean, you're rating the, I don't know, I want to understand this in particular because it would help me in my teaching as well. Thank you.
Well, it's a rather good question because popular can be measured in different dimensions. So what we did here is, just for the sake of demo, we just recorded how many what clicks on this resource were done or how often this was accessed. So you can see that, for example, we had like, well, close to 140 clicks on the what is learning analytics task during I think the last 4 or 5 days when we opened up the room. And we just say, okay, this is the most popular activity. But of course, I mean, only 7 people actually clicked on the Learning Analytics bot link, which is also due to the fact that we just opened it. Like it wasn't, it was hidden from the participants until like 30 minutes ago, and many people also access it via the chat or something. So yeah, it's debatable if this is the most popular activity, but it's the one that has most often been accessed in the room. So that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Peter.
Okay, with that said, I think I can directly give over. Luis, do you have, I think you have one slide, or do you want to directly give it to
but no,
Ralf?
I think since you're here and people have just seen this, probably it's good that you give more like the behind the scenes view of the, you know, how this all gets, you know, implemented in practice, and, you know, the architectures and things like that. So, and then I will go on with the other part of code track and, you know.
So I think it might be, Ralf, if you're okay with that, I would just give it to you then, and then you can start with the slides.
Can I?
Well, I stopped sharing, and well, I hope so. I can also, or Luis can also open the slides again.
Can you please open the slides for me, Peter, and I tell you?
Sure. Let me see. How do I do this Google thing in full screen?
That's also my problem. Yeah?
just a second. Let's see, view. Yeah, but how to do this presentation mode? Luis, do you have a hint for me how I can put this into presentation mode?
Peter, you need to start sharing your screen, and once you are there in the Google slides, you click on present.
Guess I found it. It's okay. Thank you very much. This one, right?
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Peter. And with the help of the audience, yeah, so we could start the presentation again. You see how helpful it is to have so many experienced people in the room. So yeah, the detail project has also an challenge is say provide a technical infrastructure for all these doctoral activities. And so that is the task at our university to provide these tools to you. So the Moodle course, yeah, so the LRS, the chat tool, they are all part of the infrastructure, and you can make use of them in this project, in this context, whenever you want. So, and this is not fallen from heaven, yeah. So we have started to research such infrastructures a long time ago, and we had really high hopes in when we started learning analytics, and so the critical question is how could we end up in a situation where we analyze quiz data in Moodle. Yeah, so not to offend here Peter or Alex who did this demo, but that was not the idea when we started. Yeah, so to bring a critical stance into that. Yeah, so let's say most of learning analytics nowadays is used by commercially oriented or governmental organizations, state-run organizations to reduce costs, and also to reduce risks and to replace people by automatic tools. Yeah, and when we started, we were funded by European research, and indeed, my first PhD student, Dominic Renzel, he was the first one finishing his PhD on a European research project called ROLE, which stands for Responsive Open Learning Environments. And at that time, personal learning environment, that was really something new and exciting. So learning environments which are belonging to you as a learner, yeah, not a Moodle which is belonging to the university and you are a student enrolled in this course, but it's really something you are managing actively. And so we had all these learning widgets people developed, yeah, like they were utilizing their own environments, and they could really work together. And when we started with that, we were really started with the goal that people are sharing their personal learning environments with other people, that people can learn from each other how such environments can be constructed for everybody. Yeah, so apart from all institutional or commercial interests, open source and so on. And if you see the reference here, so this was one of the early learning analytics conferences where we published that. It's almost 10 years ago. Yeah, so and that was also the start of our journey. Yeah? So we used that infrastructure in many projects at that time, also Erasmus project. I think there's one more point, yeah, two more points. Yeah, so okay. that's really that we wanted to share these learning environments, but yeah, this died out. So was not really picking up. So also this CMOOC environment from which was started, which is just the same word like personal learning environment, was yeah, really transformed brutally into this commercial MOOCs we have nowadays. Yeah, so so it's really have moved really away from these original visions from innovative researchers in TEL. So next slide, please. So in the next EU projects, which was we were trying to do that not anymore in institutional context of higher education institution, but to put that into the context of small and medium enterprise, so professional learning. And we had also a workshop at the LAC conference there. And what was left from this project for the infrastructure are two important things. It's the OpenID Connect you have used. Yeah, I think that is a key infrastructure solution for authorization and authentication in learning environments. Yeah, and if you look at modern yeah, approaches for cloud hosting and so on, you will find always OpenID Connect in the heart of it. Facebook has it, Google has it, yeah, Gaia X, is European cloud infrastructure, has it. And so we started to work with security and privacy policies, which is one of the big things there. And what has been left is that we always gathered the data not for other people, but for the learning communities themselves. Yeah, so that was always our goal, that not to put the data in the hands of yeah, commercially interested people, but for in the hand of the learners. And with the infrastructure, we started with something we call the layers box at that time, and it's now a Kubernetes infrastructure. And we can start the next slide. So Peter hopefully will finish his PhD in the next month. Yeah. So and he did this fantastic study together with two other PhD students. He learned to know at the summer at one of the summer schools, and the three teamed up. Peter from the technical side, and Bernhard Göschelberger from the organizational side, and Tracy from the use case side, and they come up with this decentralized learning infrastructures. Yeah, so which is what we have in the infrastructure now. Yeah, so with this last-to-peer, which is this technical framework behind it, and our analytical framework, which is behind many of the learning analytics approaches, and also a tool which are not followed up here, which is allowing us or allows learner communities to create learning environments, personal learning environments, and also social bots. Yeah, so which is also open for everybody to create open bots. And we used in this project, you can read it in the IEEE Transactional Learning Technologies, bots not only as quiz masters, yeah, so but as learning facilitators. And that is exactly the role how we see bots nowadays. Yeah, perhaps the next slide in the ongoing project Test for Comp, and perhaps the text on the left, that learning analytics is used for the informal learning within a higher education institute as a mentoring bot. Yeah, so because of the mass university situation, yeah, so there may be a certain justification to use bots and artificial intelligence for some learning analytics and yeah, mentoring tasks. And that is partly a picture of the infrastructure you have now here with the OpenID Connect, with the last to peer, which is all managed by Kubernetes, as we have experienced it now on the detail platforms. So we can get data and fusion them from learning management systems, from sensors, from bots, as Peter rightly said. We can store them in learning record stores as XAPI statement, and we can also verify all the transaction between the learning management system, between the bots and the infrastructure via a blockchain approach. Yeah? So that is all the current state. Now we go a little bit of the future. This picture, this is from a newly started German funded project together with learning analytics gods like Henrik Daxler, yeah. So among others, Daniel Dimitri, and they're all part of this great new project where we do multimodal psychomotoric learning analytics in domains, universities like sports and robotic human-robot interaction. And so we will continue our journey, and that will also be part of our detailed infrastructure. As the blockchain, we managed to get funding from also German Ministry of Science and Education for storing educational biographies for continuing education in in blockchains. And now Germany is spending a lot of money, 5 billion euros, to build a national educational platform. So we are latecomers. Yeah, this is already available in innovative states like Estonia, yeah. So, but not in Germany. This has because it's quite a big country with a federal structure and many stakeholders. So we need 5 billion euros and a couple of years to create that. Years after smaller and better organized countries have done that, yeah. But hopefully, with all these endeavors and also with the help of new PhD students, yeah, so working on learning analytics topics, we can manage to do that. I think that was the last slide I have to show you. So that was a little bit as a motivation for you, yeah. So that also the technical side of learning analytics is interesting. You can do fascinating interdisciplinary research as a TEL researchers. We need to staff all these projects here, yeah. So, and if you contact us with your CV and so on, we can also make interviews. If you want to start a PhD here, feel free to do that. And we will see again each other on winter schools, summer schools in the context of EATL. I'm quite sure about that. So thank you very much for the moment.
Okay, thanks, Ralf. And I see time is running out. So we still have a few more things to show you before we wrap up. So I'll try to be fast. So just share my screen briefly. So the other part of the data that we actually gathered during this session is what happened at the beginning, like this small group collaboration. So, I mean, so far, probably you've experienced that in Zoom quite a few times. So probably the instructors were going around the groups and trying to see if there was any trouble, as I actually did today. But you know, at some point, the instructors also, you know, run out of time and hands and eyes. So, you know, what if we had like 10 groups or 100 groups? So how can an instructor, a teacher, you know, in these kind of online environments, how can they manage group collaboration? And, you know, this code track system that you saw has a few like teacher-friendly features in that sense to try to orchestrate this collaboration in these digital collaborative settings. And I will just show you, so it has, you know, it tracks a bit, you know, how much you write each person, when you speak, etc. And we are also now trying to develop more, let's say, advanced features of, you know, exactly different subdimensions within collaborations, and not just whether people write or not, but whether they're, you know, using the words that are maybe, you know, on task versus just talking about the last football match or whatever. So I will just briefly show you let me see, one quick view of what the instructor could see. So this is the teacher interface of CodeTrack. And here I could just access the different groups. Yeah, so that's what I did when I was entering your rooms and kind of, hey, checking how are you doing. But I could also see already here how much activity was there in this Etherpad, this kind of collaborative editor that was there in the environment. So I could see, for example, group 7 was kind of passive. So I went there and actually like it looks like they had gone, somewhere else, things like that. And there's also from the speaking data, you can also, seeing who speaks after whom, you can also get some data about, okay, like, is there spoken activity? Are people collaborating with each other in that sense? And here, I think that the data somehow got cut, so it doesn't look like it's complete data yet. That's again a research prototype problem, which, but I think the Etherpad activity is probably quite accurate. So I could at least get this initial idea of whether there were, some groups that were passive, or maybe they were doing something else, and I could go directly to those rather than just, roaming around the many groups that I could have. And maybe just to tell you a couple of words about this project or this tool, which we are now testing. And you could also, if you're interested, we could talk about whether you want to test it in your own, teaching, or whether you want to collaborate in this kind of learning analytics. So this CodeTrack is about this analyzing small group collaboration, so which is a very common learning arrangement, both face-to-face and online. But the thing is, collaboration has multiple components, like sharing knowledge, whether there's mutual understanding, argumentation. So we are trying to find out what kind of features in the audio, in the video, in the logs best characterize these different aspects with collaboration. And also how to, so that's more like for us as researchers to try to see if we can understand the collaboration itself, but also to support researchers to manage these small groups. So from just mirroring the data, which is what you saw in this dashboard I showed you, it's just, okay, like they type so much, that's a mirror of the data. But we could also think of more advanced interfaces that guide the teacher, like, oh, it looks like this, looking at the different parameters of the collaboration, maybe suggest what's a good intervention for this group, for example. And, and we have tried this kind of research, this kind of system, both face-to-face. So here there's like a microphone, and from the microphone and the logs of the students collaborating in same collaborative text editor, we could get both audio and log data and analyze that. And in this second interface, which is what you experienced today, we have this more online interaction, but still has similar ideas. So we get the audio data, the video data, and logs from the text editor, and then we provide data or advice to the teacher in an online environment. And I mean, I could also show you, for example, we were using some other systems. For example, in the previous webinar, for those of you that were there, we're using this system called LA Pills, which is, it's recognizing that the learning analytics is still a bit too complex for everyday classroom use in many instances. So we were trying to build a system that is very simple. It's much more simple than the things that Ralf has been showing before. And, it's kind of like we are toying with the idea, what would be the simplest learning analytics platform to help a teacher see the benefits of learning analytics at a low cost. So what it does is you can create some kind of templates, and I can maybe show you quite quickly how it was looking like. And this is, those of you that were there in the previous webinar, you were familiar with this. So this is a template that I created for the webinar. So next time I do the same webinar, I can just reuse these questionnaires and all this setup. And there's also,
you'll see the slides if you're showing.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. I will reshare. Thanks for noting that, Michal. So I hope you can see now something that is not the slides. So this is what you were seeing in the previous webinar. So this has like the learning activities, some embedded data collection, in this case, like some questionnaires, for example, like what things about the session we had. And then you can see actually a dashboard. So both the teacher and the learners can see a dashboard that can do quite advanced analytics about the data that was gathered during the session. So, and then the data can be also analyzed later on by the teacher, for example. So now, for example, this is like some correlations of some constructs that were talked about in the webinar, which were taken from like quite complex questionnaires, and then at least we see here like kind of nice advanced visualizations of that. So those were a few looks behind the scenes of the some Learn Analytics tools that are available, and many of them are more like research prototypes, and some of them are more advanced, and I'm also looking at different kinds of let's say Learn Analytics you can do. And maybe I will just share a couple of last slides about how these things are implemented in reality. So what did we use to implement these LA pills, or what kind of things Ralf and her team are using. And I mean, there's many kinds of systems, but or toolkits. Like typically we use data science generic toolkits, like things like R, or I don't know why I keep clicking on the links. Like R or Python are very popular in Learn Analytics for visualization. Things like Plotly, Kibana, like all these are tools that are used in other areas that are not educational per se, but we have repurposed in Learn Analytics to be able to implement these systems that analyze the data automatically. And I mean, we don't have time, but I was providing there a couple of pointers to, if you are interested in researching Learn Analytics, where you should go. Probably the best starting place is the Handbook of Learn Analytics, which is free and open. So you can just download it there and just read it. And it has things about foundations, which is things like, what is Learn Analytics, computational methods, ethics, things like that, but also techniques, like different ways of implementing Learn Analytics, like different analysis techniques, visualization techniques, different ways of designing these kind of systems. Has also, fields of application, where it has been successfully applied, what kind of settings it has been applied, or what kind of constructs have been understood with Learn Analytics. And also some more like institutional or high-level perspectives of the field. So I think this is a very good starting point. There's also other things like MOOCs, and I will put that in the Moodle space after the webinar. And here, I mean, I will not go into this because it would take quite a bit of time. This is just like different kinds of Learn Analytics related research. So maybe depending on what your point of view is, there's things like educational data mining, AI in education, learn at scale, intelligent tutoring systems, or quantitative ethnography are some of the communities that are around Learn Analytics, which are a bit different. They have a slightly different perspective, also depending on whether it's more technical, less technical, more oriented to different things. So I'll just leave the links there so you can take a look if you want later on. And of course, we don't have time for this exercise, but I would like to just have a few minutes now, and I know some of you might have to go, but at least have some time for people to ask questions if they still have doubts. This has been like a very, very fast tour of some Learn Analytics issues and ideas, very basic. It was kind of like dipping our toes into the lake of Learn Analytics research. So I hope you can then dive deeper. But I don't know if anyone has some more particular questions or doubts after all this.